I mean, like one of the cool things about email is that it's one of the more mature digital marketing channels out there. It's got a lot of control on it, and because it's got a lot of control on it, there's a lot of automation that you can do around it. Keep in mind that working in Canada, you will be subject to CASL. If you do anything in Europe, you're GDPR, and if you're in California, you have to abide by CCPA. So there's those that you'll need to take into consideration when you're figuring out who to email. But it's still a really good channel, and we still use it to get some really good results for ourselves. So I will go ahead and get this guy rolling here. Now, generally, the kind of backstory on this, or why I think marketing automation and email automation is really important, is marketing in the future is going to use more automation. Everything in the future is going to use more automation. But marketing is especially one of those areas that's starting to really get there. And those who can use the automation, or those who can bend it to their will, those people will be invaluable. Those people will have jobs for the foreseeable future. I think depending on what you're looking at in the marketing industry, there's a lot of jobs out there that are at risk of being automated. If you rewound about 10 years, go back 10 years, you look at media buyers at that time, people whose jobs it was to like do TV insertions, radio insertions, that kind of thing. They would have had a pretty secure job, but even just 10 years later, a lot of those people are having to learn new skills, and they have to switch to new industries. So I think that having some flexibility is a good thing if you want to be in any industry these days. And I think that in marketing, especially, having some ability to use automation is going to make you a lot more invaluable, and it's going to get you better results as well for your customers or for your company. So we'll go through a little bit of like email campaign pre-work, talk a little bit about like kind of the meat and potatoes of deploying an email campaign, but really like I want to spend more of the time today in drip campaigns, nurture campaigns, and that kind of thing. That's where I've spent the last couple of years doing like pretty nuts stuff, and kind of building email campaigns that act like a person, that like do something that a real person would do, but like at scale of like thousands of prospects, right? The first thing, that email campaign, I don't know if you've gone through much of this kind of stuff yet, but there's kind of like a series of steps that you should go through if you're looking at doing an email campaign. You definitely want to start with the goal. You don't usually want to start with I want to send an email campaign. It should be I need more leads. I need to let my customers know about this impending change that's coming up. I need to whatever your goal is for it. And you should make sure that that's first and foremost, and that's very clear, because otherwise you risk making an email campaign that's just going to be a monster, and it's not going to actually do what you want it to do, or it'll do it and you'll be like, oh, but that's not going to help me at my job. So make sure to get that goal properly first. Next up would be strategy. Strategy is like what's the tools, techniques, what's the concepts you're going to be pitching towards people. To think about your target, your demo, or your persona, where you're going to pull those people from, and then what kind of information you have on them. Medium, in this case, we're going to use email, so this is going to be a little bit easier. But you might want to consider: do you want to do email and a physical mailer? Do you want to do a physical mailer out? Like if you were targeting like a really important list, a physical mail out might be a nice little touch. Or are you going to have a salesperson call them at some point? That might be another thing to consider, right? So it shouldn't just be, I'm just going to do this one thing. It should be, I'm going to do this one thing, but what other things should I consider as well? Content and creative, schedule a timeline, and assemble the team. And in some cases, that's just you. So done. Box checked. When you're building the list, it's best if you can kind of have like a target demo that you're going after. Generally, the more information you have, the better. So if your company has a CRM, if you guys have Salesforce or Pipedrive or something like that, you can mine that kind of data to get a better list. So again, if you need to contact your customers and let them know about, let's say, a new package offering that you guys have, you can use your CRM to find the customers that would be most likely to respond positively to that. So that would be however which way you've defined out your demos, whether that be age or gender or earnings or however whatever information you've got that you can mine to find that appropriate list. Next, you would be pulling that list out either via CSV or Excel, or if you have a direct connection between your CRM and your email platform, you're off to the races. No extra futzing around required. And then if you're building a list of Canadian prospects, again, just make sure you're following CASTLE. You can't just email people out of the blue and expect that to be okay. For pulling contacts from a CRM, this is just an example of a view into our Pipedrive. So within our Pipedrive, I've got a couple of different fields I can select by industry, whether we've won a deal with them or not, whether they're in Canada or not. So this example here, I could be looking for financial companies in Canada that we haven't already closed, for example. And then once I've pulled that that list, I could put it into a CSV file. A CSV file is just like a real big Excel file that you can upload to a lot of email programs out there. And there's an example of what it would look like. One thing that you might want to do at this step is clean your data. If you take a crappy or a list that's not quite ready, or a list from like multiple sources, and then you upload it to your email program or your CRM, you stand a real risk of screwing things up, of putting the wrong data in there, and in some companies, messing up the CRM will get you fired. So make sure that that's nice and clean. And even if it doesn't get you fired, it's still going to make a mess for you that you're going to need to clean up afterwards. So definitely take a look at that and make sure that those are correct. If you're going to do any kind of personalization afterwards, which I would recommend that you do personalize these things. If you have the right kind of information, it doesn't come across as creepy, like using people's first names and that kind of thing. Definitely use that personalization. I would say like a more interesting way of personalizing emails isn't in using their name in the subject line, which is something you can do. It would be in versioning the emails. So I'm going to send version 1 to people from this province. I'm going to send version 2 to people from this province. Or I'm going to send version 3 to people who have looked at this product before. That kind of like targeting can be really interesting. And that's where, again, we're using the information that we have, the demographic and personal information that we have about our prospects to more effectively market to them, to talk about stuff they care about, not stuff that they don't care about. So I think that stuff's all a lot more interesting as well. When you're looking at building the actual email, generally you'll be like customizing some sort of template or building your own template. A lot of email programs these days come with some templates that you can build, throw in a logo, some colors, and you're off to the races. If you're building an email to come from a salesperson or from an SDR, don't use any of these. Go as like plain as you can get. Throw a signature at the end, call it a day. I've tried some emails where it was like a lot more graphical, separated out, nice bar images, super well designed, and they performed crappier than just a plain email from a salesperson. Now that was like, I love that, learning that, because it means that I don't have to do the fancy dancy like designed up version every time. I can make like a plain text version. So definitely as you're sending emails out, test those kinds of ideas, because that's where you might save yourself a ton of work. I couldn't imagine if I had to do that every time I needed to deploy an email, like do the fancy dancy version when my plain text one converts better. A couple things that I like to spend a little bit more time on, subject lines. I just love agonizing over that, because I think too often when you're trying to build an email, it's like the last thing you think about, or you just like give it a throwaway. And that's what's going to cause your open rate. So if you see an email go out and the open rate sucks on it, it's because your subject line sucked. And I think that's one place where that's really good to test on. And again, most email programs, you can A/B split test on the subject line. So you have 1,000 people you're sending an email to, 500 get subject line A, 500 get subject line B. Figure out which of those subject lines gets better open rate, because when you test that kind of stuff with your market, it gives you feedback on what's working or what's not working. And kind of one of the things I was talking about when I first came in was this concept of digital marketing, like giving you so much like good data back. And what that makes you is a better marketer for your audience. you can become the best marketer for your audience by testing constantly on them and learning more than everyone else knows, right? A lot of industries vary so much in what works or what doesn't work. I was mentioning like that plain text email, that won't work for some types of customers. And I don't know which types of customers it doesn't work on until I test it on them, until I see like, oh, if I'm going to email an agency, it's got to be the fancy one. And I can't use Comic Sans in the body copy. They really hate that. And I gotta like mind my P's and Q's with the design of it. And I think it's super interesting because you learn the most you can about your industry. And then once you do that, you kind of hit more home runs off the first ball. So you don't have to agonize as much over the subject line. You know what? I've A/B tested 20 of these things. They love this style. Perfect. Saves time later in the future, right?